Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds! So nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's Andrew. Come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Woo! Badrun in the house. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I heard so much about you, Tom. So very excited today.
I'm really thrilled to have you on. We've had a lot of congressional candidates on, and then when I heard, wait a minute, there's someone running against a pretty strong primary competitor. And I said, wow, that person must have some serious sass, some courage to really go after and fight for in a place where, there's a bit of a juggernaut there. Ironically, I think AOC herself was a bit of a David versus Goliath story back in the day. And now here you are. So I guess before we get into the specifics of the campaign, for those who are not super familiar with you and your story and how you got from growing up to here, can you give us a little bit of an introduction?
Yes, I can. So first of all, again, thank you for having me. We have a lot of people who's actually seeing this show because I have family and friends in the community who are a big Yang Group fan, and they're really excited that I'm here today. So I'm going to give a shout out to all of them. So I was born in New York City, Manhattan, to a family. They migrated from Bangladesh in 1960. So I grew up in Bangladesh. My parents grew up in Bangladesh. They came and they were all in small businesses. So we have several restaurants in Manhattan. So I grew up with family, friends around the neighborhood. In 1998, we moved to Sunnyside, which is District 14. And I've been living here almost 22 years. I'm a financial controller, and I work for South Bronx Overall Economical Development right next to my district. And I have two girls. One is 18 and one is 14. Very excited about the campaign. And I've been a community activist for a very long time. I used to be a former president called Jalalabad Association. That's a South Asian organization, and it has 14,000 members. I was the first female who won that election. I did a lot of work for the community. I work with a lot of females, males, a lot of domestic violence in my community, a lot of abusive child abuse. I mean, I dealt with a lot, even though I don't have any kind of degree behind that. I try to help people wherever I can, what was feasible for me to do. And the last year, I decided to run District 14 as a congresswoman. There's a lot of reason we could go back into the reason, but in short term, I'm a community activist. I'm a community board member, and I work a lot for the community.
So tell me, before we move on, I hear you have a cousin who watches the Nerds channel every now and then.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to say hi to him?
Hi, Rahi. It's Afu. I just want to say hi to you. And Tom is here. So when you see this live, Mahfuji Rahman and his wife.
Yes, Mahfuji Rahman. I love the fact that you are a fellow nerd. Thank you for encouraging Badrun to come on to the show, and we are excited to learn more about this journey that you're on, Badrun. So tell me a little bit about, I guess, do you consider yourself Yang Gang? How do you feel about Andrew Yang's ideas?
Okay, so I will tell you, it was late in the summer, I can't remember when I walked into my house, and my brother told me, oh, Badrun, you heard about Andrew Yang? And I said, yes, this is the one who wants to give you $1,000 for every adult citizen. And he's like, yeah, he's the future president. Like, we were really in the house, a heated conversation about what it is. And right there, the first thing that came into my head, I'm like, this will help my community with the domestic violence. So I've been around a lot of people who had a lot of domestic violence. So let's say they called the police, they're all separated. Then about 3 weeks later, the wife can say, you know what? I can't be here. I don't have any funds. I need my husband to help me pay the bills or pay something, or my kids, my mortgage. And they would go back to that household with the domestic violence because there was no means for them to survive. And that's what like really pushed me towards this UBI, Universal Basic Income. And then I was reading it more, and I became very supportive of that because I think just not domestic violence, it would help single moms, single dads, who, and some people can't afford daycare. I don't know if they just can't. They make either too much money or too less money. And I just think it's not a lot if you think about it weekly wise, but it's something so they can move forward with it, and it would help them in their household. Because someone said, well, that's a lot of money. I'm like, no, it's not. If you do the calculation per day, do it per week. I mean, however you do it, it's not too much money. So some people actually, well, then people will stop working. I'm like, if you could survive in $1,000, then you won't have family, 2 people working. Then you would have someone always home and 1 parent working. And if you live in New York and in our district, you cannot have 1 person working and survive. So I've been a supporter of that universal basic income pretty much way before the pandemic hit, like early on in my, if you see my flyers, they all have UBI, and it's something that we need now. I mean, I'm trying to push it as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue we need it now more. We always needed it. We definitely need it more with sort of the changing kind of economy and the kind of role of technology and trade and that kind of thing. And then now with the lockdown, and I could argue even with all of the tension, the racial tension, there's part of that tension comes from poverty and a sense of economic hopelessness as well.
It's economically disadvantage is the main issue, because we have such an income gap in our communities that makes it very difficult. And I think absolutely with the racial, that's related, because I come from a Muslim family, so I know how it is when they're attacked or said something. So we face that many times. Maybe I'm a New Yorker because they don't feel like, sometimes they won't say something there, but let's say if my family or friends walk with me and have a scarf on, I feel the tension. It's just, I can understand it. So I understand what happened to George Floyd was absolutely like heartbreaking, and I give my condolences, family, and I stand with them. Like, police brutality needs to stop.
So when you were thinking of running, it sounds like one of the core drivers was the experience you had working with women in your community who didn't have a way out of terrible kind of domestic abuse situations. And I think Evelyn Yang has talked about this in many places, including on this channel, around how the freedom dividend would have been a game changer for millions of women. That said, you're in a district with a very well-known incumbent, AOC, and many love her. I mean, like, she's like practically a national figure. What was the calculus in your mind to put your hat in the ring? Because it's obviously, it's not a high probability fight that you're going into. How did you think about that? Was that a hard call for you?
It was. We let's say I had a couple of community people, friends, family, we all sat together, and we kind of did what's the positive, what's the negative. It's a hard call, but I think certain people and myself and certain member in my community, certain member in just not my basic community as a whole, it's time to stand up, because in the last 2 years, there's no changes. We have no jobs. Immigration is still in the same place. Housing is hazardous. So in 2 years, it wasn't great. We didn't do much change. There was no much changes in our district. And then we had COVID. Then COVID-19 happened, and it was just like it went from worse to terrible, I should say. And being that District 14 was the epicenter of the world, how could have we not seen that? And my congresswoman, she was very famous, nationally famous, but look what happened to her district. It fell apart. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that, she's great, everything is wonderful, very respectful towards her, she did a great, but now with the famous congresswoman, my district was the worst hit of COVID. Why? How could we have managed to stop that? Same thing. Jobs were scarce before that. Small businesses were dying out before that. And now with COVID-19, small business doors are closed.
So is your feeling that she has been so focused on her national role that she's had less time to look after the district? Or what do you think is?
Absolutely. I think every congresswoman does have to come back home, right? This is the place where you were voted into so you could represent us. But look, we did vote into her. We all did. She was there. But then my district with COVID-19, it was, if you go into a church next to Elmhurst, or if you go to a church in the Bronx, just the outside people, there are at least 2,000 people waiting online for food. 4,000, 5,000 people. This is so sad everywhere. I mean, such a food insecurity. And then some people, it's just so sad. They cover their head, their face. People don't want to see them. But you know what? It's not, people are just suffering. And there's going to be another, if there's another wave, I hope, I pray to the Lord, there's not another wave. We need to prepare ourselves. Really. Yeah, the preparation, but also with district, we don't have a lot of hospitals around here. Elmhurst the lines were insane. It was, people didn't want to go there. Ambulance kept on bringing patients there because whoever was sick, it was one hub that kind of took everything. We have another one, it's Mount Sinai, but that's too small. But Elmhurst took the grunt of all of the sick people. And then if you go through the district, the housing is such an issue. So let's say most of the apartments are 1-bedroom to 2-bedroom apartments in Elmhurst, Jackson Heights. And then you have people have 4 or 5 people living in a 1-bedroom apartment because they can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment. And if you're sick, where you isolate these people? Like, let's say my mother is sick. I don't have a room to isolate her because I have 1 bedroom. So then your mother's sick and then the whole family gets sick. If a grandmother's sick, so it's something that the pattern kept on going because Elmhurst couldn't keep them in the hospital. They had to push them out. They went home. Somebody else got sick. I think it was something that it kept on growing. If you've seen the dead bodies, I'm sorry, I didn't want to say that, but the bodies next to Elmhurst Hospital, it was just devastating. It was just horrible. And then in our community, myself in Jackson Heights, we had to do so many burials. Now, burials are very expensive too. So I did fundraising people. I connected to our South Asian organization. Can you help bury this person? And can you help bury that person? And they had free burials, so we were able to give burials. But when you open and close, it's like $3,000-$4,000. It's the mother, the father. Sometimes 2 people passed away. It's a lot of expense. It was very expensive, but we as a community stick together because we lost about 200 people in my community. And wow. They lived, or maybe even more. I said 200 plus, I should say, in our community, which includes Jackson Heights. It does include a little Jamaica. So what we did, we put together like everybody calling each other. Okay, can you give me a certain amount of money? Can you pay this organization so they can bury this person who just passed away? So we worked hard for it, but that was also very sad. It was a very tough. I lost an aunt. I lost an uncle. My mother-in-law was extremely sick, and so my mother-in-law, thank God they're good now. They survived it, but it was a hard time for the community.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear about your family as well. I think a lot of us who aren't in New York, which was probably the kind of epicenter of a lot of the deaths in the country, don't realize how. I mean, because I'm coming to you from Zurich, Switzerland, a couple hours north of Milan. And what I hear is like that was like a war zone and like, refrigerator trucks full of corpses kind of thing. What do you think? Do you think you could have done anything if you were in Congress? Like, because some people might just think like, well, what can DC do? They can't get anything done. If what would have been different had a more kind of district focused congressional representative been in office at that time?
Have you seen the videos of people not having masks? Not having masks, not having uniform? Like if I was a congresswoman, I would if I had to beg people, like give me masks, Give me uniforms for for the hospital. First responder were suffering so much, they were using the same mask over again. And then the hospital staff who were actually just cleaning after the people didn't have anything. Gloves were missing. Like, I'm a congresswoman, I would fought. I'm like, listen, my hospital needs all this. We should have just sent funding. If we didn't have funding, send materials, send supplies that we didn't have. They didn't have supplies.
Yeah.
They didn't have things to even wipe. They didn't have Clorox wipes. They didn't have any wipes. They had nothing. It was worse than a war zone.
Yeah.
One doctor, you know what? One doctor was, I mean, he was seeing 100 patients. Think about how long a doctor could see 100 to 300 patients. Yeah. I would make sure we send hospital people there. Maybe people, we would have called the private industry to come out and help the hospital, which they didn't do. Yeah, because I think the hospital, there was short of nurses, because you know what, nurses were getting sick, doctors were getting sick because they didn't have enough material. As a congresswoman, I think she came after a week or later to do a press conference, and then she didn't have a mask on. Also, it was just not a positive thing for people to see. I remember when we started, it was March. I live in Sunnyside. You have no one outside. Like right now, it's a little bit different. Like you went to the corner, people were online to get foods, like just to buy milk. Like, and then you had the grocery stores wouldn't let you in without a, I mean, it was a sad time. And I'm a New Yorker since I was born. I have never seen, and then you have people calling you with, we need to get to the funeral home. And the sad part is we lost a president of an organization. Nobody was able to see him, his family, his friends, nobody. It was just like, if your parents die, your father dies, or anyone die, you were outside trying to find out, okay, is this person still alive? And now when my aunt died, we found out 4 hours later because we kept on calling the hospital. Nobody answered. And then about 4 hours later, we found out that she passed away. So they passed away alone. People were crying at home, and it was just not the devastation. It was a sad time. That month was, you open your Facebook and you found out, okay, this person passed away. Do you know this person? We need help here. That was at least for a month going on. And I think as a congresswoman, I think if I was in Congress, I would have spoke out really loudly. I'm like, you know what? Elmhurst is in the verge of breaking. You guys need to send materials like now. I know Como was on, like, look, I need help. Como was, I will give it to Como, showed a lot of respect to everybody. He tried his best, but it was a hard thing. And I think it starts from the Trump. Trump was not great the way he handled COVID-19 at all. He denied it. And then we got hit. So as a congresswoman, I would have pushed for my district, being that my district was hit the hardest.
What do you think of the mayor's job? I mean, was he helping out?
I mean, I have my dislike and likes about the mayor. I think he was clashing a lot with Como, I felt like. And I think that was an issue. I think sometimes I think both needs to come on terms. I mean, he had an issue with the schools. Como had an issue with the schools. I just think he was there, but I think Como took the most head of this whole entire process, and he did work. He actually told Trump, send me everything, and if anything extra, ventilators, and from me, I'll do it and make sure after the ventilator is used here, I'll send it to any other states who needs it. But we needed it first. And the comfort ship was a great idea that it came to New York. It helped 900, 1,000 people. Yeah. And Mayor is doing okay. I'm not him.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my commentaries about him, but I don't.
Yeah, people have strong opinions about him either way, for sure.
You do? Okay, so it was not me. I think he should have been more proactive and come down to the district more, also being the mayor, and not just doing the press conference and saying we need this and we need that. But I don't know. I just don't have a very positive reaction about the mayor.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's another example of a local leader with national ambitions, you know, that sometimes that affects their ability to really roll up their sleeves and get into the neighborhoods. And
I think also the neighborhood wants to see who's representing them. Sometimes, you know, it's great to be online, Great to be Twitter, great to be on Facebook, Instagram, but there are still people who don't use that stuff.
Yeah.
And they're still old fashioned, and they want to actually see someone. And also, I think the congressman targets only the young generation and leaves behind a little bit. I don't want to say older. I don't want to say that. But they have, like in my district, there's a lot of people who's very involved in politics, very involved with the community. And you don't want to put them on the sideline because you need everybody to vote.
Yeah. Now, you guys recently, did you have a debate recently?
Yes, we did.
When was it and how did it go?
It went actually well. I'm sure you know the other candidate, right? There's 3 of us.
Yeah.
So it's actually 4. Sam Salone, I don't know, he's also on the ballot.
Okay.
So it's myself, Alexandra Cortez, and Michelle Cabrera Caruso, and myself. So the debate went well. I asked a lot of questions. I believe in policies. I believe, like, okay, what are your policies? What are my policies? What are you going to do for my community? What am I doing? I believe we should have ambitions of what am I trying to do for my community, instead of you're not in the district, what are you doing? No policy. So my other opponent, Michelle Cabrera Caruso, if you go on her website, she has no policies. She was a former Republican that and then she, for the elections maybe last year or so, she became a Democrat. She wrote a book on small government, and the book is pretty much eliminating Medicare. So it was a lot of that. So that person and me kind of got into a huddle of a lot of things, because I said, if you're in the district, how do you know my? And she didn't live here. She lived in Trump Plaza for 15 years.
Oh.
And then she moved into my district right next to here, next to Sunnyside. And she wants to fight for my district. She doesn't know my district at all. She doesn't know what my people are looking for. I bet you she can't even walk in the district and know where the better restaurants. I mean, because I live here, I know everybody. I know my bodega stores in the morning when I get my coffee. You need to know the district to run. And I think her ideology is also to be something national and not for the district. So that's a big concern for me. And her book was, her forward to her book was written by Larry Kudlow, Trump's economic advisor.
Living in Trump Plaza, getting a forward written by Kudlow. That doesn't sound super Democrat to me, but
yeah, but
there you go.
And then with Ocasio, I did have some back and forth about Rikers being closed, where the violent, she has a thing she wants Rikers to be closed and not to open any more jails in the community, and I do agree the jails are overcrowded. But then I had a question. So what about the violent crimes? Where do we put them? In the community jail, which is overcrowded already. And if we don't, so we're closing Rikers. We don't want any more community jails. And so how about, where are we going to put the criminal who does violent crime, not misdemeanors?
Yeah.
So I don't want to put a violent criminal with my misdemeanors. You know what I mean? Then it doesn't work. And then the jails are overcrowded already. We need to bring more reforms to that. The reforms are not working. We need to build more programs. So when they have certain programs to come out and start a new, fresh life. I mean, she didn't answer my question. Kind of went around and not answering. I tried it, but the issue is, I'm a new candidate, so I didn't get the airtime a lot of the candidates get.
You got the Andrew Yang treatment.
They don't all media, not just all media. I asked one media, I'm like, can I ask you what is difference between me and Cabrera and Caruso? I understand she's the incumbent right now, Ocasio. What is the difference between me and her? And someone wouldn't answer it. And I know what the difference is. It's the funding. She has lots and lots of money. And she has Wall Street money. She has, special interest funding. Mine is a grassroots campaign. Ocasio-Cortez came out an ad against me that I take corporate money and Wall Street money. And I called her out on her. I said, Congresswoman Ocasio, I do not take any money. Mine is a grassroots campaign. And I take money mostly from my district. And I think what you said was wrong. And she publicly apologized. Then she put an ad out today.
Oh, so the ad's still running?
Yes.
Oh.
So,
That's
so we did have a confrontation between all of us. We had some questions. I believe the Green New Deal is a little bit unrealistic without nuclear energy. I mean, I said I'm not a person that like MCC would say. I'm sorry, Michelle Cabrera Caruso would say she's MIA. Like, okay, go beyond that right now. What are you trying to say? It's time. You want to attack someone, you attack on their policies, what they're doing, and how can they make a better place. Instead, one thing all the time.
Yeah. I'm looking at your policy section of the badruncon.com website. Of all of your policies, which ones do you feel most strongly about? I'm sure they're all important to you. Are there some that you feel your district would benefit from the most?
Well, right, like as I said, we need to pass universal basic income right away. It just has to be permanent, not the stimulus package. That's something my district will help. I think it would help the whole nation, not just my district. That needs to be, that's one that I'm really fighting for. And I know a lot of people are fighting for this. That's one. The other one, I also want to push for a lot of the education problems we have. Just to give you an example, all the education that's, the schools are overcrowded. Learning disability, it's been cut. I have people who have learning disability that didn't get enough help, and that's something I'm trying to fight for a lot for several years. And then the other thing is the housing. Well, you know what, if you think about it, everything is important. The Green New Deal is important, climate change, like everything is important right now. Currently, I'm also like UBI needs to come out. So we need to go back into the economy. And one way to start, it's universal basic income. And slowly we need to start going one by one to go into Congress and push everything. But these are my, like, if you say 1, 2, 3, it's hard to say because all of my policies are important right now.
Of course.
In the of the world.
Yeah. What's the reaction to basic income when you talk to constituents, or did it come up at the debate at all?
Oh, no, because you know why? Ocasio doesn't support that. You know that.
Yes, but so therefore they don't bring it up at the debate?
Because she called it a libertarian Trojan horse at one point. I think she even said that. Yeah. So I pushed, like in my opening statement, I made sure I talked about it. Even at one point, we need to bail the people out. We need to get cash in their hands. I pushed it a lot. And even in my interview this morning, I pushed universal basic income because I'm thinking, everybody's thinking, well, it's just for the current. I'm like, no, we're not getting out of this slum hole for a while. So it needs to be permanent, and it's not a lot of funding. So I gave an example. So the $1,200 has not gone to everybody's hands as of yet. Few people received it, not the other people have not. What the issues is, we've been trying to work at it. So I think that's the issue that we need to push for. And I wish someone would put a bill out for there like now. Yeah.
Well, you've got a great background in that you used to work as a financial controller or, in finance. What do you say when people question whether we could pay for a basic income? How do you try and work them through that without having to spend like an hour and a bunch of charts?
So I'll tell you, I'm still working as a financial controller. I've been in accounting 25 years. I'm still working. So one person I met yesterday and I said, listen, he's like, okay, give me one of your platforms. So I said, universal basic income. He said, this is, what is that? I mean, that's also an issue that I'm facing. I said, universal basic income, then I want to give $1,000 for every adult citizen. And he was like, wait a minute, can you stand here? Do you have 5 minutes? I said, yes. I'm like, I will give you. He's like, how does that work? That means I have to pay more taxes? I'm like, no, value added taxes. That means if you buy a luxury good, and then when we pay the taxes, it comes back to your pocket. He's like, that's a great idea. He's like, value added taxes. So this was in Queens, and he was very excited. I'm like, look, I buy a bag for $1,200. I get charged a lot of taxes, and that tax that comes to. He's like, yeah, because my wife buys all these bags. It was so
the first tax.
The first tax. So it was like the value added tax. I just said as luxury good. So the first thing he thought about, he's like, luxury good, you mean all the bags my wife buys? I'm like, absolutely. He was very interested. He's like, I like your policy. So that was a very simple person who got the concept. Then I meet people in the Bronx who was like, so the issue that I'm facing with lot, and I think when Andrew Yang suspended his campaign, the universal basic income people needs to know about it more. It needs to be how you have to be preached about it more, talked about it more in different communities, like Latino communities and in South Asian communities. I think that was what I'm doing right now, because I have different ethnicity group in both of my both of my boroughs in. So I've been teaching them, giving them pamphlets, writing the pamphlets in Spanish, trying to explain to them. I think that I told a couple of the UBI supporters is talking on YouTube or just posting it's not enough. I think we need to go out there as an individual or groups of people and talk to people about it. Do virtual, virtual Zoom meetings and try to explain what is universal basic income. Because I did get a lot of questions about it, but I mean, because when we're walking with COVID, you can't explain that much. So when I'm on the line, let's say when I'm handing food out, that's when I get to people and I talk about it. And on my pamphlet it says UBI, Universal Basic. He's like, what is this? So I'm getting a lot of positive reaction. And and then the other part, he also asked me something. It's like, would this be permanent or like the stimulus package? I'm like, no, it'll be permanent. People are excited, but people need to know about it. We need to push it more from the Yang group, from everyone. I think that will work.
Yeah, it's a great point in that for us here, it's probably viewers of this channel, we've been talking about it for a while, but it's easy to forget that, not everyone watches YouTube live streams, not everyone's on Twitter, and it sounds like a lot of folks in your district, even though Andrew had been talking about it on every debate that he was in, not everybody watched those debates as well. So we still got a lot of kind of awareness to work on before we even convince them of all of the benefits. To your point, it sounds like what percent of people in your district just don't even know what it is? Like, it's for them, it's completely new.
A lot. I won't even give you the percentage. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like I can walk through the Bronx. So let me give you an example. Last Sunday, I was in the Bronx, Pelham Parkway. It was about 500-600 people on the line. So out of the 500-600 people, no one knew what UBI was.
Wow.
No one.
Yeah.
So when I was telling another woman about it, the other said, wait a minute, you said $1,000 a month? And she came from the line, came up to me. And so we kind of got a little group of going. And I said, it's like, okay, so this woman was across the street from the building. She's like, can I take some of your flyers? I'm like, absolutely. Tell me and I'll go give out the flyers. But then I had flyers of all my listing of what I want to. So then I was telling my group of my campaign staff, I'm like, I need something just on UBI, like a few points and discussing a few points. So that's what my project was. So I've been giving that out too and all that stuff. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the vibe in your district now with the police kind of brutality and race relations and Black Lives Matter stuff going on. What's going on in your district?
Well, my district actually, I was at 2 marches. One was in Sunnyside last week. Very peaceful march, no fighting, no violence. And there's another one in Skillman Avenue where I live. People are coming down. There's inside. I'm talking about Sunnyside, but if you talk to Jackson Heights had a pretty bad. People were like breaking doors and all that. That was a little rough there. I think people were just upset, and I think it went to an extent. And people were sad of what happened to George Floyd. My heart goes out to him and his family and what he suffered. I think in the last couple of days, it has come down a bit with the curfews. And I actually ended up my daughter was a little sick, so I had to just take her to the hospital. This was a day ago. And when I came down the highway, I lived out in New York all my life, and it was pretty much dead. Nobody was outside. It was pitch dark, and I drove around 4 o'clock in the morning because I had to come back. And I was in the district, which I had to drive to get to my apartment, my house, and nobody was in the street. It was very quiet. I mean, I was scared actually parking my car. It was so quiet. But people took a serious thing about the curfew, and people didn't want to come out. And people, when they did come out with the marches, it's came with value that we want to show them that we're here for a protest. We're here to fight something that is happening wrong. And the other thing, people also were scared, like, okay, whose side are we on right now? Like, it's the brutality is so bad, and the police officers are really, I mean, you're seeing all the videos. Cops are very upset. I think there is upset from both sides, and some cops were kneeling too. So I have to give that to them. Some sheriffs were saying, you know, Trump should keep quiet when he talks. I mean, we have positive and negative reaction, but really it happened in the city a lot. A lot of looting was happening. The police brutality was just getting worse. Things were getting on fire. But I think the city made it calm down. And people stood up and said, you know what, this is about peace. We're not destroying anybody's property. We're here to come for peace. We want to show them that we are better people, and which has worked, I think.
What's your take on, there's some folks now pushing for defunding local police departments. What's your view on that?
So I have like views on both ways if you have to think about it. So first of all, let me tell you about the police department here. You only have 6 months of training, and you're a police officer, which I think is very limited, because you have to train yourself in many things: mental health, how you treat with mental health people, how you deal with pretty much overdose, who's a drug addict. You need to deal with certain people like that. In 6 months, what kind of training you get? Like, there's not enough training how to even treat someone. Like, the first thing, like if I was a rookie, like, oh my God, he's going to kill me, what I do? Like, what's the first instinct? Shouldn't you think about it? But they don't have that. In 6 months, do you give them that aspect? Do you train them? The first thing what they do when people like attacks you or something, do you take your gun out first right away? Like, is there any other tactics you could use? Like, they don't even have that specific training. And defunding them, and I think we have enough funding. We don't need more, but we need to use the funding to create more training for police officers. I mean,
yeah. So when someone joins a police force, I guess I was under the impression they would go to like a police academy for a couple years or something.
6 months.
So it's 6 months. Yeah.
So even if you're like, if you go and like if you're a psychiatrist, how many years they train them to deal with a mental health patient?
Yeah.
And many cops deals with people who have mental, like just think about it. Just some sort of, I need more training, just how to talk to someone who's not maybe correctly sane right now, or maybe he's suicidal, maybe he's doing something that, how do you, like, I just don't believe in the training concept we have in 6 months that, okay, you're a rookie cop coming, I mean, you're in the worst neighborhood in New York. How do you deal with them? Like, in my opinion, is just not enough training. We need to get them training. And we need cops to also understand that they also abide the law. Like, if you do a mistake, you need to face these incidents, and you need to get punished for it too. So the police officer who actually put the chokehold to George Floyd, he had 17 or 18 prior complaints.
Yeah.
So why was that not being investigated?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I were to play devil's advocate, they would say, if
qualified immunity.
Yeah, or things are investigated and nothing came of it. You know, people complain all the time. He was doing his job. You know, it's qualified. That's what immunity. That was what they were looking for, and nobody did anything. And I think that's not correct. He should have been out of the job a long time ago. 18 complaints. Yeah, I also read that the other folks that he was working with were all rookies, and perhaps they also did not have a lot of training. Like, a couple of guys were like they were at McDonald's, but literally working at McDonald's before they took that job. You know,
Tom, I have to ask you something. I even if they're a rookie, the first thing, even if you're walking down the streets, if someone says, I can't breathe, that's the first thing reaction. Okay, let's help him. Let's say any reaction. Yeah. The first reaction, anybody is a stranger, I can't breathe. First thing with any stranger, the first thing is do, as a humanity as a person. My God, he can't breathe. Let's see what we can help. That's a human reaction. And you other four stood there and didn't do anything. No, I don't agree with that. Like, I understand they were rookie, but I can't breathe is a big question. I have people, like my husband had a heart attack in the streets about 3-4 months ago. People from the grocery store all came out. He's alive because of the people in the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. Now, the defense attorneys for the others are saying that Chauvin was the training officer. He was the 2 decades of experience, former military MP, and they were following his lead. What's your take? Do you feel like all of them should be culpable for Floyd's death, or do you think it's just Derek? Or
no, because they were there. They saw that. As I said, I can't breathe. They could have said to their officer, look, he can't breathe, man. Maybe he can't breathe. Maybe it's true. Like, maybe you could just let it go, like something. I think they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I just don't agree that they all stood there. And I understand he's their trainer or he's their boss. No way. That is something. I can't breathe. Like, he's saying it and you're not reacting. And I don't agree with that. I think they should be punished exactly the same way, because you were there and you did not try to help this person.
What do you say to people who feel like that this is not the first time that a black man has died while he was being put under arrest, and that marches alone are insufficient, and that some of this violent kind of civil unrest that we saw was kind of necessary to get people to pay attention? How do you think about balancing the need to really have change once and for all versus safety and the local neighborhood and that kind of thing?
Well, I would say violence is not the answer for anything. I think peace is the way of answering people. I do understand people are upset what happened, and maybe that will make a turn to the country. I understand people's concept. But even though when you're destroying a neighborhood, for example, the people live in that neighborhood. Not everybody live in poverty. And when you destroy a neighborhood like that, it hurts the people. There was one woman who came out and said it was so sad. It's like, you destroyed my neighborhood. And there was glass in the store. And she's like, look, we don't have a lot in this neighborhood. By destroying now, we have to come out and clean up the neighborhood. Please, we beg you. We want to hear. She said, I'm a black woman. She said that. It was on last night or night before, crying and taking a broom and cleaning everything up. Like she said, this is not the way of creating awareness. We need to create awareness in positive way. And that was so sad. It was really bad. It was a housing neighborhood, and there was no stores there. It was like maybe 2 grocery stores, and they're like, we have no money anyway. So what are we going to do? She's like, go away from us. It was so sad. But I also think some of these reactions make people wake up a little bit. And some of these reactions, like in Sunnyside, the big thing was, we're here for protest, and the cops were lining up. And 8 o'clock, everybody went home, because I went with my 14-year-old daughter. That's how safe I was. And I think it's a bit what people are trying to say. Some people were holding barricades against the Target Mall, that we're not going to let you break it. Like, it's a lot of different things. I think the aspects of the what's happening into the stores, into some stores in the city. Mostly, I felt like it was the city.
So let's say if you were in Congress today, sounds like the increase in requirements for police training would be a big part of what some of the policy solutions you would think about. Are there other things that you think you'd advocate that could help heal this divide and provide more kind of fairness to everyone?
We need to do an accountability act, the George Floyd Accountability Act. That has to be a law. Like, people needs to, any police officer or government official who tries to do anything to a civilian like that because of race needs to be accounted for. And I think one strike would be more than enough. Like, this is something that's hit the nation. Like, you have to make sure these police officers take accountability because they broke the law. That's something we need to face the consequences for it. And I know there's a bill out there. They need to repeal the Qualified Immunity Act.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting when a police officer is killed, it's a huge deal, as it should be.
Yes.
Because it's kind of an act against the legal system. But interestingly enough, you could argue that, well, when a police officer kills a citizen who has not yet been convicted and has not been sentenced to death, then that should equally be like a massive deal for society. And yet, until now, until the sort of advent of all this camera footage, we don't have that same kind of kind of intensity of reaction. And so I tend to agree with you that the same way that when a police officer is killed, the whole system is under attack, you could argue when a police officer kills, the whole kind of justice system is kind of under attack.
Yes.
Do you feel like how would you try and prioritize your time if you got into Congress? Because there's so many, like we were just talking about, there's so many issues that are important. I mean, we barely talked about environment,
yes.
Education, housing. Now we're talking about like criminal justice, economic kind of, empowerment, on and on and on. These congressional representatives, those 2 years probably go by pretty fast. And, you don't want someone else 2 years from now saying, wow, what did she do in 2 years? Well, how would you try and get something done quickly?
Well, for example, we have a lot of candidates who supporting UBI. I hope all those candidates out there win their seat, especially in New York. That's something, because I think if you want to pass something, you have to work together as a group. That's what I was thinking. Because I think the Democrat Party had an issue of who's my friend, who's not my friend, who's actually a Democrat. I think there was a lot of problem in Congress in the last 2 years. And with the presidential election, I think the Democrat Party was not very strong. Some people were supporting this person and some people this idea. So I think we need to get a platform and we need to work together. That's what is important. As a Democrat Party, we need to be strongly put together. And with one concept right now, let's bring back the economy back. How can we help the people who are in need, and especially people of color, people of faith who are suffering? And that's what we need to target. We should work with each and every one of the Congress to see how we can help each other, which I think there's an issue with that in the Democratic Party. Yeah.
So what's your take on Nancy Pelosi's leadership of the party and the House?
Well, I think she does positive. Everybody has good things and bad things, but she's a very strong leader and she knows pretty well what to do. Right now, it's something that's keeping the party together. And I think if she could keep the party together in a positive way with the upcoming presidential election, we should focus on that right now.
Yeah.
Remember, it's important.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to be the key for this presidential election? How can Biden make sure that
he wins?
That he doesn't step in it? Yeah.
We need a very good vice president, that's for sure, right?
Uh-huh.
And we need the entire Democrat Party to support Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And we also need people to go out and vote, which people don't do. And I understand some people were Senator Bernie fans. I understand some people were Elizabeth Warren fans. But at this time, we need to change the administration of our country. And the way we could do it is if we go out to vote and we have a different president for 4 years.
So what advice would you give Democrats who are saying, I liked Buttigieg or I liked Booker or Yang, and now I'm not happy with Biden? Like, what would you say to them to get them to get out there?
Do you want Trump again? I'm like, you saw his last tweet? And that's what I've been telling people. I'm like, look, there's sometimes you don't, maybe you're not a fan of the current candidate for president, but you have to understand that's part of the Democrat Party. And it's time that we change the administration. The administration is hurting us right now. It's hurting everyone. So it's time.
What do you think is there's so many things that are difficult about the Trump administration. What concerns you the most about how he's been leading the country so far?
He's very he's totally against Muslim people, color people, the way he acts and makes comments about them, like the Muslim ban. That was not necessary. Like he puts everybody it makes it more Islamophobia for people. That was just horrible. I don't know if you remember the time.
Yeah.
I had families couldn't come back. Friends couldn't come back. That is ridiculous. They were born here and they couldn't come back.
Yeah.
Like that is something. Then he made a tweet, the thugs, come on. Like, really? You're the president of the country. And I think these comments he makes just makes people more like frustrated, and people are angry. Like the way, and then the worst thing, look what he did with COVID-19. If you would have made it, he knew in January, February, he should have shut down the country then. It would not have been so bad.
Yeah. The
way the administration works, it's not. And in February, Larry Kudlow, so, oh, we're great. Our economy is doing wonderful.
So I've heard some Trump supporters make the argument that those of us who are in the Democratic Party or opposed to Trump, we get too worked up about his Twitter feed, that he's just playing us. He doesn't mean any of that. Just like, get over it. Like, we're overreacting. Half of what he says it's just to get a rise out of all of us, and then he's not really that bad, in terms of policy. So like, ignore what he says. What's your take on that?
I sometimes I do agree, but now the nation is much more different. People live on social media. That's what people were doing for the 3 months, and that will react people. As a president, I think whenever you tweet something, you have to understand you're tweeting to the whole nation, and your word is word to mouth. So as a president, a leader of this country, you tweet things like that, and people should just take it quietly. I don't agree with those. Yeah. And I tell them, like, how about when your friends tweet you something, don't you get rattled up? Oh, he said this to me and he said that to me. Exactly. Like a common thing. So when the president makes a statement, it's a hurtful statement. And then me as an individual, like, who is this guy? What is he talking about? How, like, his tweets are very, with his racial comments, people don't take it positively.
Yeah.
If he's thinking about me like that, what he's going to do in the White House.
Right.
I have a lot of Republican friends too that love Trump, and sometimes, like, we go at it.
Oh, don't we all? Don't we all?
We all go at it. Yeah. I'm like, maybe you don't like me either. I would say, do you like me? I'm brown. And he was like, and
what you mentioned the Muslim community. I kind of feel like things, in a weird way, for Muslim Americans have kind of simmered down in terms of, like, the attention is not on
them anymore.
Muslim, right? Is it better now in a weird way because of that, or like what's your take?
Well, I think the quote that, oh, you're Muslim, like yours related to a terrorist, it's always that concept, and that has gone away. People, and we're bringing awareness to people. People in our community are seeing that we're pretty good people. We want to work with the people. We try to protect our community. I think we worked a lot in doing that as a community, especially the mosque and the synagogues and the church. We work with everyone. I think we want to show the positive thing that, what's happening the other side of the world is not who we are.
Yeah.
We're like, I'm a normal American. Like, I go get pizza, hang out on Friday nights. Like, we're just normal American. We just pray differently. That's it. It's nothing that you can't do. We love basketball. We love baseball. We do everything as a normal person, an American person does. Like, American kid, we just pray differently. That's it. It's nothing that is such a big thing. And we don't eat pork. And we don't drink. But it's just something very mine, it's not, I think people take too much into consideration, like, oh, Muslim, this is just that thing has changed from many years ago. Like when we go to the prayers on Friday, it's not that people are still looking at us. After September 11th was pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of the fear from some folks who are not maybe familiar with the diversity of the kind of Muslim community is that they assume that, like, sometimes when you watch TV, there's an image that's portrayed of Muslims like completely covered, very kind of like ultra conservative and Sharia and all that kind of stuff. Do you feel like we've gotten over that, and now we're understanding that there's like any religion, there's different sort of this continuum, and not everybody is
I
on
think
one
if
end?
you go to the communities is changing a lot. Like if you're right next to a community, and there are some people, they wear the hijabs, and they do, like, I'm a practicing Muslim, but I don't wear the hijab. But there are some people who actually, they cover from head to toe. I mean, that's their choice. And I think because we teach so much, and I think the community is getting bigger, the kids are in the community now, and people are trying to understand, oh, they're not bad people. And the mosque actually helps the community a lot. We gave a lot of food out, this thing. So people are changing their attitude. But, if someone dislikes you, they'll dislike you no matter what, no matter how much you teach them. You always get one or two here and there. But it's getting much better. When I grew up here, it was not like that. Now we have a lot of mosques. We work with the synagogues. We work with the churches. And everybody's trying to explain. And then when we do preach, we preach. It's always the goodness that we try to preach.
Yeah. Someone was asking if you had any thoughts on the Bankruptcy Reform Act that Biden had championed in the past. Do you have any views on that, or?
Well, the Bankruptcy Act, I think, is the one that he said there's people could do bankruptcy, but they have to prove certain assets income, if I'm not mistaken. Like
I think the little bit of the controversy was that he's from Delaware. There's a lot of credit card companies based there. Maybe
the company is open there.
Yeah, so maybe he was kind of siding with the finance companies a little too much, I suppose.
Well, I think also I'm talking about here now. Let's talk about it, bring it down here. So we can have a lot of companies that's going to go through bankruptcy, especially the small businesses. And that will help. I'm not saying I'm saying from the small business side. The bankruptcy laws is quite difficult law. You have to prove that you were the sole owner, or if I'm not a lawyer, but I remember because I helped someone fill out some paperwork because he lost his business, is done. And it will benefit them, but as always, the bigger company benefits more. And we should make it that it will help the small businesses more, which also I go back to my small businesses. The red tape with the small business is very difficult.
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit, the risk is that a small business, an individual could have a lot of assets and be doing fine, but his business is bankrupt. And then there's a question of like, well, maybe you could pay some of this.
That's not fair. I think, he built his business, but I think as an individual, small business owner, because of what happened now, it didn't happen, his business will be fine, right? Now, because business failed because of the pandemic, now if you take all his assets, what will he have left? Yeah. So I think also the controversy, I mean, I think he did it positively to the finance. It would help them with Delaware, but I also think from the small business aspect, what now? Yeah.
Next question. Bear wants to know, what's your take on, Colin Kapernick? And it's interesting now, years later.
I support him all the way. He's kneeling.
Not a hard one.
I kneel with him if I could. And Putin was not right. It's something he stood for, and I'm great for him for standing on it. I think that's everybody.
It is so frustrating because people got so mad at him for kneeling, and then obviously people are now taking to the streets and saying, well, that's not appropriate way to protest either. It's like, well, you can't win. Like you try and do a piece. Literally, he's just kneeling.
I think that
people get all pissed off.
I just don't know what was wrong with it. Like it was like I just didn't. The controversy about kneeling, I just couldn't. I'm like, that's very quietly. It was done very. It's not unrespectful. I think when you kneel, like I just couldn't understand the thing on it. But
yeah. Well, that's at least the NFL themselves have now said that they will, that they were wrong, at least about how they were so. I think they were concerned, I guess, at that time with the impact on advertisers and some viewers were turned off by it, but
yeah, but
here we are.
I mean, TV advertising, you have enough funds anyway. So if one or two were upset, it would not kill their business. I don't think so. Maybe maybe their revenue would have been hurt. But what he did, he took a stand, and I think that's great what he did. We all supported him, and what they did to him was not nice. Like it's just like it's just. But I was fully for that.
Yeah.
It's happening now. Like when we were at the march in Sunnyside in my neighborhood, the cops didn't kneel, and people were upset about that.
Yeah. I guess the other thing is that the ownership of the NFL teams is probably not the most diverse demographic, so they were probably influential in some of those policies. But
they're not diverse at all.
They don't look like you and me, Badrun.
They don't look like you and me. That's the problem we have here. It's like even here, I think, like we always talk about it. Let's give you when Andrew Yang running for president, I'm talking about the South Asian as a whole was something he put in the pattern. And like, you know what? If Andrew could do it, I could do it. He's from that side of the world. Like, so I think it was a very positive thing just for my father, for myself, because my father came in the 60s, like really and he was like, wow, he's telling me you're on TV. I'm actually seeing you in New York 1. Like that would not be something in the 60s where we even imagine. Like it was a different thing. And he was saying, he was telling my brothers, like, Andrew Yang just opened a lot of pathways to people. It's not about winning. It opens pathway for other groups of people to come out and do certain election.
Yeah.
In Chinatown, first time there was actually a Chinese person recently in all these years. Yeah. Which was a great thing, but that's where most of it's just people need to understand that this is a growing nation. A lot of different ethnicity group are coming here, and it's time they represent in the United States Congress. I would love to see I would love to see Andrew to be president.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. That would have been awesome. He's young, so he's not like some of the other candidates who are a little older. So he's got a few more runs at it.
More 4 years. And a couple of his policies just absolutely great. I read his policies. I did way before I started, like everything was working. He has some very good policies. So yeah, is running strong.
He's stronger now than he's ever been. So hopefully 2024 can't come soon enough.
Do you know if he's going to run for anything else in the city?
They were talking about mayor. And I've seen interviews where he looked kind of intrigued and didn't rule it out completely. I personally, I don't know. I'd be curious to get your thoughts. Like when I look at Giuliani and de Blasio, I'm not sure New York City mayor is a fast track to the presidency. What do you think? Do you think he'd make a good mayor? Do you think that's what he should go for?
But if he does run the mayor, he will be the mayor. I just want to tell you that. He has, he will win with a lot of people. I was telling someone day before yesterday, he's like, oh, if Andrew Yang is running for mayor, then I won't support the other guy. I'm like, well, don't support anybody. Yeah, wait a little bit. He would win with great numbers. I think we'll support him because it's such a diverse state. And Andrew Yang is so, when he speaks, he talks about real things about what people is having hardship when all jobs are going away. He's trying to understand that. And I think he would win great and with a great positive reaction. And plus Andrew Yang's pretty much supporter here. I don't know how many Yang gangs are here, but people will come out and support him. Beside the Yang group. I think he has outside support from people who actually find him maybe a different mayor that could run the city a little bit better. If de Blasio was, I'll be silent on that. And then he's more a technical person. He understands education. Our education is suffering a lot in New York, a lot.
Yeah, I have a mixed mind on that one because I agree with you that he could probably do a lot of really high impact things for the city, and it is a great city, and it's a city that appreciates diversity. So he would not have as much of a headwinds being sort of Asian American.
It won't even bother anybody.
Yeah, but I do wonder, like, if it would
become the president after this. That's what.
Yeah, right. Like, because Rudy and Bloomberg and de Blasio, they all were mayor, and they didn't go anywhere near that White House.
Well, first of all, Bloomberg did the thing issue that really, he was a Republican, first of all.
Yeah. And
he made this city expensive, very expensive. So people didn't like the changes he brought to the city.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not something. And then he apologized. And I don't think he had that communication that he had with the people.
Yeah, no, he was not the most charismatic candidate. That is for darn sure.
That's for sure. Giuliani, he was too strong. He was like, that's his thing. He was just a mayor. He couldn't go beyond that. And I don't know if you want me to comment on the mayor, but
yeah, go for it.
I personally didn't agree with a lot of things he did in the community. So I'm not a big fan of him. Certain things he did. There's one thing he did that I couldn't believe he did. It was a storm and people begged for the kids' school to be closed, and he didn't close it. So do you know, kids were stranded in the bus overnight too, because of the snowstorm.
Why didn't he close it?
He thought, oh, it's not going to be that bad. It's going to be fine. My kids took it took them from the school to come to my house about 4 or 5 hours. And there were some kids were stuck. And then this restaurant actually brought those kids in, not going to the bathroom for hours. He was really criticized for that. He did some things that I think it was the education thing he did. It's just, I just don't, he wasn't very, he doesn't, maybe his, the impact of him as a mayor wasn't very positive at all.
Right. So if your goal, let's just say your goal were to see Andrew as president, do you think that being mayor would advance his cause as opposed to staying on CNN, doing the nonprofit, and maybe serving in the Biden administration?
Well, there's two sides to it. So let's say he becomes the mayor. The other thing is he needs to have positive reaction. The whole nation would see him because it's a big city, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that will be, people will know who he is. That's what it is. Like, it's just publicity wise, working with the mayor. If you build up the city, that's the positive side to it. I just think as a mayor that he could communicate with the other mayors. He has relationship with everybody right now. If he wants to work on the Biden administration, that'd be great, but we still have to wait till November, right, to see what the administration is. So that's like a leap that you have to close your eyes and wonder if that's going to happen. And we hope it happens. And the thing is, he's doing CNN. People do talk about him, but he's not in people's eyes every day. Yeah. They're not talking about him. Like right now, even when the mayor comes on, I do listen. You know what I mean? I have to, because he's in my city. So also with the pandemic right now, like everybody's listening to Cuomo, everybody's listening to the mayor. So it gives him a lot of publicity. That's what I'm saying. And he could show what he did for the city. So you have to carry which ones you have to carry it both ways. It's great mayor, but it's also, there's positive and negative reaction. But you know what, in politics, you're going to have a lot positive, a lot negatives.
So if Biden loses and therefore the administration role doesn't happen for Andrew, will that be too late to then run for mayor? Like, do you have to basically announce like a couple years in advance?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so you could.
Yeah, because there's still people who ran. I know someone who ran about 4 months ago, and he's like, "Oh, I'm not running anymore." I'm like, okay.
Right.
I know some people who said they were running, but they haven't made that an official announcement. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that's going on and off.
Interesting.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
like, but Andrew Yang, I just want to say something. Andrew Yang has a very huge follower in the sense of helping people, the humanity aspect of it. So that's what we need in New York right now.
Badrun, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
I do. I actually want to help if you as a person and the Yang Gang to actually help me win this election and do some calling. And I did a math. I'm a math person. I said I have like whatever people I have. So let's say if you have 4,000 people on your Twitter, tell that 4,000 people to ask someone in New York to go vote for me. So if you double 4,000 is 8,000 votes.
Yeah.
I'm asking people, I did the simple math and I said, people, anyone, you have friends and family, just ask one person you know in New York to go out and vote. Because if we want to push universal basic income, we need people in Congress, or that's never going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think people forget that it's not like AOC shook the world last time with like millions and millions of votes. Like the district's meaningful size, but it's thousands of votes make a big difference over there, right?
She won with 16,000 votes.
Yeah.
It's over 700,000 votes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was nothing. So I was trying to tell everybody, because I do the math, because I work in a lot of community election. So I tell them, if they tell me one person, if they know one person in New York in my district, and if 4,000 people say to one person, it's more than enough for me. Or two person is 8,000. I'm like, just 4,000, 8,000 votes is a lot of votes. And with a lot of Yang group in here, I get so many emails throughout the day, and I ask them, can you tell someone to come and vote for me, or actually fill out the absentee ballot? So if they tell two people, it's 8,000. If they tell one person, it's 4,000. I'm like, just help me do the math and tell people to come out there and vote for me. We need changes. We need people who help the community. Me as Badrun Khan, follow me on Twitter. Tell me if you need anything. And people in my community, if anybody needs food, anybody needs masks, gloves, please DM me. I will make sure I come out myself to give it out.
Right on. Let me just add your Twitter there so everybody can see. Hold on. Show.
And I need some funds if you guys could spare $1.
Yeah, what would you do with the money if you got a few extra bucks from the Yang Gang? Where would you deploy that cash?
Right now, I would help some volunteers, because all the volunteers are doing work pretty much for free. I would actually hire some high school students above 18 and actually help them work with me, and I'll pay them a little, because right now everything's volunteer work. And I think some of the kids who are coming in actually looking for some help. So they asked me, Miss Khan, you think you could pay me a little bit? I'm like, come on board, work 2-3 hours and we'll pay you whatever we can. I don't have many funds like AOC and Cabrera Caruso has. But what I do with the funds, I make sure I hire people who actually need it in the community right now. If they need some job, like who's doing phone banking, who's actually texting, I try to pay them whatever we can.
Yeah, no, and for what about people who might have time to volunteer? What are some things that volunteers could do to help you get the word out?
Phone banking, texting.
Yeah, and they can find out about all of that on badruncon.com.
Yeah, if they even send us an email that they want to volunteer, so we could connect you with Distribute and Forward, who's actually helping us.
Right on. Well, if you are watching this now or on replay, go check out Bradrun's website, follow her on Twitter, and I think you're one of those Yang Gang for Congress where we need to have as many people go for it as possible, because all it takes is a few voices getting to DC, and we can get the ball rolling in a way that could be historic. And so I really salute you, especially I think what you're talking about in terms of the impact of a basic income on women and mothers and wives and single moms. is probably way underappreciated, especially for people who say they care about these constituencies and then, you know, don't support basic income. It's just really hard to understand. But I also know that, you know, we've got to get the word out. And so I appreciate you coming on, spending so much time with us. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, nerds.
Goodbye. I'm grateful that you had me on, and I'll make sure everybody sees you tonight, the replays. I know a couple of people text me there online.
I love it. Now, Badrun, you got to say goodbye, nerds, though.
Goodbye, nerds.